Hello, welcome to Media Queen TV. I have the beautiful Janeen Vosper with us today, and we are going to be chatting about how to speak for profit. So before we have a chat with Janeen, just let you know a little bit about this amazing lady. For over 20 years, she has worked as the general manager of sales for a successful multi-million-dollar business, coaching high-performing commission-based sales teams. She established her coaching business Speech Perfect in 2007 to provide the tools to empower people to possess the confident voice of self-belief. A keynote speaker and host of the We Are Women podcast and author of 2 books, Janeen's coaching includes online training programs, private coaching, and group seminars. She's presented workshops in many countries worldwide. She has coached international speech winners, and in 2013 represented Australia at an international speaking contest. From Alaska to Japan, New Zealand to Hawaii, and right across Australia, audiences have described her as brilliant, powerful, and informative. Welcome, Janeen.
Thank you, Aldwyn. I paid those people to say that, but that's all right.
Amazing history you have there. And I was on your We Are Women podcast recently, and I love that and love the work you do. So thank you so much for coming and joining us today and sharing your wisdom. So I'd love to know a bit of your background before all these amazing achievements that you have here. Where did you actually grow up, and can you tell us a bit about your childhood and what that was like?
Yeah, I grew up in the 60s, and that was quite a free time for children. We could be gone for hours, and if people drive along the freeway through Holland Park West, then there used to be all paddocks and creeks through there, and we would just be lost for hours and a whole day on end. And I think that's sort of the beauty of growing up in that era, and also with that amount of freedom. I think that builds a lot of confidence and self-resilience and ability to solve problems or how to get out of trouble pretty quickly. It was certainly a blessed childhood to be able to do that and to have the freedoms compared to children today. Unfortunately, there's a lot of media and devices and things that control their lives, whereas we were just in the paddocks in the creek catching turtles.
Amazing. And there wasn't too much media back then. I think, TV was only around in the sort of 50s, radio TV only just started back then. So of course there was no internet back then. So all you had was, the news from the TV, and there wasn't even mobile phones back then, right?
No, it certainly wasn't. Even when I started working, there was no mobile phones. It wasn't until I started repping that I got and that's about 25 years ago, got my first mobile phone, and it was very exciting. Do you believe I've still got that same phone number?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Which was very cool, because you never used to be able to transfer them from one to the other and things like that. But
yeah. Wow. So you've certainly been someone who's adapted with the times as technology has changed and evolved, and you're out there and very active on social media nowadays, which I'm very impressed by. So what's that been like for you with all the changes that have happened since the 60s in the way that we do business and we do life?
Yeah, look, for about every stage throughout my life and my married life and parenting, about every 10 years I've prepared for the next job or the next business that I was going into. And so I'd either go and do some study, or so when my children were very young, I was doing a lot of fitness. So I went and studied to be a fitness trainer. And it was only the second course that ever went through in Queensland. And there must have been, people were teaching aerobics, but they had never been trained in the whole fitness leader before. So I did that for about 10 years. And then I realized that the body starts going, 16 classes a week is not great. Let's go. And so then I started studying management, and then moved into the management role. So each time I moved into a different role, then you've got to learn more skills, and you've just got to be really open to it. And shifting into a corporate senior management role meant that I had to just sort of clear any negativity or barriers up to learning anything and just be really open to it, because there was an awful huge learning curve. And since doing that, it's just keeping up with the things that I need to be doing. Not, I have a general knowledge of a lot of other processes, that I can do a little bit of work on my website, things like that, but keeping up to date with the things that are important. So, because you just have to, absolutely. Some days I think I don't want to, it's full. The brain's full. We won't do any more learning for a while, but it's so important. You just can't stop learning. You have to keep learning all the time. Yeah, so I started working part-time when I was 13 and full-time at 15. So 40 years.
You grew up very fast and straight in the trenches, and
absolutely very different world to what it is now for teenagers.
Yeah, amazing. And you're involved in a few other groups as well, with speaking. So how important has that been for you to be studying and constantly fine-tuning your skills?
Well, I joined a group about 20 years ago, which is now called Power Talk Australia. It's a not-for-profit public speaking group. And it was really interesting. A friend and I, we both had messages we wanted to get out, and we knew we needed to hone our speaking skills. And one Tuesday, I just typed in Google Public Speaking Club and found this one, and I rang her and said, "It's on tonight, we're going." And we did, and she stayed a member for a couple of years, and I've stayed a member for 20 years, and I've had senior roles in being the Australian president a couple of times and state president multiple times. And it's now more a mentoring role. But I was talking about this morning at an event I was at, and it's also about getting feedback on how you're going, because a lot of professional speakers don't get feedback at all, and you don't know what you may be possibly doing wrong or what's happening unless you're getting feedback. And within Power Talk, it's a club-based thing that meets on the Gold Coast, in Brisbane, around the east coast of Australia. And you certainly get feedback from people as to how you're doing and what you might need to work on.
I was at the Power Talk South Brisbane the other day, thanks to Linda Ben invited me along.
And that's right, yeah.
And I actually did 3 years of Toastmasters. Now, Power Talk is a bit different to Toastmasters, right? So for people who don't know the difference, can you explain the difference with those two?
Well, Power Talk started as Toast Mistress clubs. So in the 1930s, the ladies used to go with their gloves on and their handbags and sit outside and wait for their husbands to finish their Toastmasters group. And they decided, well, this is in the US, and a lady called Ernestine White decided, well, let's start Toast Mistress clubs. And in the 1980s, they decided that they would open it up to men, as Toastmasters opened up to women at the same time. They then rebranded as International Training and Communication, ITC, and then 2007 rebranded as Power Talk International. Unfortunately, the organisation is now just in a few different areas around the world. But I've met amazing friends from having travelled to international conferences over the years, from Iceland and Japan and all across the US and Canada and New Zealand. So it's still in those places, but it's not. It used to have 30,000 members. I think they'd be lucky to be about 2,000 members worldwide now, unfortunately. So it came from very structured. It's structured like a Toastmasters, but it's a feminine, supportive energy, and with male members as well. But it's a bit of a different space. I've been to both, and look, whatever you do, either one, or there's Rostrum, there's a few others around as well. They're a great place to go and learn and hone your skills, because as you know, you have the opportunity to speak, but get uncomfortable about speaking and doing things impromptu.
One thing I love about Toastmasters was with the icebreaker speech that we do, the 3-minute icebreaker, that everyone gives you a standing ovation for your very first talk, which is awesome. I absolutely love that. So do they do that in Power Talk as well?
No, they don't. But what a great idea. I think I'm going to bring that into the clubs that I'm involved with. I think it's wonderful.
Because it takes something to get up and speak. It's one of the scariest things for some people. Some people would rather be dead and than be doing the eulogy at a funeral.
Mhm. Yep.
So
It's a
it takes something.
Seinfeld joke that you hear. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's a joke. I think it is very true.
It's very true for a lot of people. And,
Mm,
often we are too close to what we do to realize how we come across. And that feedback is really crucial. And one thing I love about Toastmasters and Power Talk is the a few things I like. One is there's the table topics section I
mm,
really like, and the fact that you can think on your feet with the stories that go around, and you learn to ad lib with your speaking. That's one thing I like. You're trained in that. I
mhm.
also like the fact that your ums and ahs are counted, and even so's. So is another filler word that I know I use a lot, and I'm very conscious now of my so's and ums and ahs as we're having this conversation, because it's very, very common that people use those filler words, isn't it?
It is, and you don't notice it until somebody draws your attention to it. And I used to have a rep working for me, and at the end of every sentence, he would go, "You know what I mean?" And he'd nod, and and eventually I said to him, "Peter, do you know you're doing that?" He said, "No, nobody's ever told me." And until you until you get told, you don't
Yes.
know. And it's one of those things, you know what I mean? Yeah, of course, you just told me. I do know what you mean. It was
Yes.
interesting. The tonight is the Helensvale meeting, and I didn't have time to prepare a speech. Well, I said I would not have time to prepare a speech. We've got our speech contest coming up in a week's time, so I am preparing that one. And so I just said, just give me a 5 to 8 minute impromptu. Just give me the topic when I get there, and I'll just do a speech. But that's what I'm doing tonight.
Excellent.
Mm,
Fantastic. No better way to hone your skills than to practice on the fly.
absolutely.
Fantastic. I love it. And for those who are interested in coming along to a Power Talk event, what's the best way that they can do that?
You find it on Meetup. You can go to Power Talk Australia website.org, I think it is, and there is meetup groups. No
Okay.
matter where you're listening, there's Sydney and Melbourne, Hobart. There's Gold Coast and Brisbane South and Brisbane Central, and yeah, so every Wednesday night, except if there's 5 Wednesday nights a week, I'm at a club meeting. I find it's better than entertainment than TV anyway.
They are really brilliant events, and you always learn something, I find, at
Mm,
those events too. Always learn something. So if you want to find out more about that, check out Power Talk. And of course,
mm,
Toastmasters is another option. I think you can
mm.
attend 1 or 2 meetings for free, I believe, before you
Oh
join.
yeah,
And it is,
yeah.
and it's
Oh,
very, very cost effective. It's crazy, like cheap, I would say.
crazy. I know. Yes, it's because, and that's the beauty of it, because you want people to join and be part of it. So it's kept at reasonable, really reasonable rates.
Yeah, very much a community focused way to get going with your speaking. For
Yeah. Mm.
those who want to go next level, though, the topic today is how to speak for profit. And I'm sure people can't wait to hear what you have to say about this, how to speak for profit. So, what are your tips in this area?
Well, for me, when I am doing any sort of speaking gigs, so that I can remember what I'm going to say, I usually have an acronym.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we'll go through. So if people are taking notes, they'll be able to look, go through the notes, and coincidentally, the acronym is the word speak,
Uh-huh.
SPEAK. I find that works extremely well for me, but it also means that people can follow along with you. They have an expectation of what's coming up next. Oh, I think that's a really important factor when you're presenting anything. A whole lot of different presentations. I'd love to know what your listeners, what they're wanting to present, or the type of thing, not necessarily a topic. Do they want to be able to speak on an interview or on podcasts or something that you like what you're doing here, Aldwyn? Or do they want to be able to, I'm just seeing something pop up, yeah. Do they want
Mm.
to be able to run a webinar where they are selling something from the end? They've got that ability to have the webinar in a formula, then they know that how to put that together. Or do they want to stand up on stage and maybe start speaking to business groups and do some free speaking? Or do they want to be paid as a keynote? They're all quite different possibilities, and it depends on what people want to do. And I've been doing all of those and multiple times a week usually, and it just depends on what you want to get out of it. I think that's the most important thing when people start saying, well, I want to do speaking, and I'll come to that as a P actually. I've jumped over, but you need to have a purpose. So the first part for the S is to say yes. Simple as that. Say yes. So if someone, even we're talking just about Power Talk, or someone's looked at doing a professional speaking course, and there's a lot of blockages that come up about what if that I say the wrong thing, what if I look silly, what ifs. There's a lot of what ifs that come up, and that blocks people from doing something the first time. So if you just get in that mindset of saying yes. I was at a networking meeting this morning, and the speaker didn't turn up, and they said, do you want to do the 10-minute? Yes. That was, of course, naturally, say yes. And then where we were, a group with 2 groups in the same space, and the other group had about 45 children. It was probably about 10, but it seemed like there was an awful lot more. And it was a large table of about 20 people altogether. And that was 2 meters away from where I was speaking. And we talked about it, and someone said, the leader said, do you want to not do that today? And I said, no, we'll do it. It's fine. It's just, so that was a very difficult situation to be. So then positioned myself where most people could hear and be able to then project the voice, but it's still that say yes. You have to do those first ones. I've worked with so many speakers who just aren't comfortable with speaking, and the way I work through the processes when we're teaching, and even just after a day's training, they're going, yeah, sure, put my hand up. It doesn't have to be perfect. For those amongst you that are looking at the notes, those amongst you that are perfectionists, guess what? It'll never be perfect. Absolutely never be perfect. But every time you do it, you get better at it.
Yes.
Just saying yes is such an important thing. So seize any opportunity that you can. That means you need to go looking for things also. So if you're part of networking groups, there's a whole lot of them around where you're expected to speak, then be the one that puts up the hand and go, yeah, sure, I can do that. And then think about it later what you can do. Even, putting together a webinar that you want to sell from it. I know webinars are really popular ways for people to connect. We've got very used to doing everything online now. People are putting webinars together, and that demonstrates their authority in a subject, and then they want to sell from the end, and there's just not comfortable with it. Just do it. You've got to do it the first time, because before it is the second time. That is such an important thing to do. So going out and finding opportunities to speak is really important, because every time you do it, you will get a lot more comfortable with it.
True. And confidence is a huge thing when it comes to speaking. People look at me and how I do life now, and they think, oh gosh, you're so good at what you do. Things just naturally happen. Well, no, they don't just naturally happen. This is years and years and years of training. I've done so many different courses and public speaking training, and on the court, I've emceed at massive events. I've run webinars. I've done the speaking gigs. And, when you fine tune your topic to the point where you can cut it down to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 90 minutes, to be able to do that is quite an art form in itself. But when you know your topic well enough, you can really craft it and master it and tweak it to whatever is needed in the moment. So for you to be able to hop forward and say, yes, I can do this 10 minutes because you knew your topic, no one else knows what you're going to say, by the way, right?
That's what I said to them this morning. It's such an important thing for people to realize is nobody knows what you're going to say. I mean, my line after that is, I don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So it's never apologize. That's the point. Never apologize for not saying something or saying something because nobody knew what you were going to say.
Yes, absolutely. And it takes that saying yes, stepping up, having the courage to do that. 50% of anything you do is just starting. That is huge in itself. So congratulations on that for stepping up for that, Janeen. And I would expect
Yeah.
nothing less of you.
Look, one of the things that got me really to a point, I'd been doing a fair bit of speaking, but one of my dearest friends, her mum passed away. And this is quite a few years ago now. And her mum had always been part of Lutheran Church at Wollongabba. It's one of those beautiful old churches, you know, wooden. It's one of those ones you feel comfortable and homely going into. She'd been part of that church for her entire life and had always been heavily involved. My friend's father had passed away about 2 months beforehand, and everyone, he'd been sick for a while, it was expected, and everyone was able to get up and speak on his behalf. The minister that was at the church, he knew the family so well, he got beautiful, beautiful words. When Auntie Shirley passed, the minister had changed. There was a brand new minister in the church who didn't know her. And none of the family could get up and speak. It was a shock that she'd passed away. And so they were relying on the words of the stranger. And I'm sitting in the pews with my mum and dad, and I'm sitting there going, I am never, ever going to be mute again. Never. I'm going to have a voice, and I'm going to use that voice. It was such a strong moment for someone that was still, you know, partially confident as a speaker, but in that situation couldn't use my voice. And since then, I have spoken at being the person sort of running funerals and other events, and people call on me to speak for other people. And a friend, I spoke at a friend's not long after that, and people come up and said, I'm so glad you did. That were the words that I wanted to say that I couldn't say them. So for me, having a voice and owning it and taking those steps is so important. Just
Yes.
yeah, so important.
Wow, so true. And people think someone else will do it, or, you know, it's not that important. However, when it comes to something like that, where you want to honor someone and you don't speak up and there's a complete stranger who knows nothing about that person,
No,
speaking up about it, it doesn't do it justice at
no,
all. And it's such a shame to leave your voice on the table and not speak up.
no.
And too many people
Speaking
do it,
is one of the most
unfortunately.
important skills you can have. It's, I think
Mm.
that the employment, there's an 87% better chance of getting promotions if you are a good public speaker. It's quite considerable.
Amazing, amazing. And I want to say hello to the people joining us now. Trisha, hello, she says. Trisha Barlow's with us. Hello. We've got Malak here. Hello, Malak. How are you? Now, if you have any specific questions for Janeen around speaking, please pop them into the chat. Let us know also, where are you joining us from? And you asked a great question there earlier, Janeen, about what kind of speaking for profit are you interested in? Are you interested in podcasts, selling at the end of webinars, doing keynote speaking, etc.? What sort of speaking interests you as well? Please let us know in the comments, and we can have this interactive today if you also participate.
We can. So our P is the purpose of your presentation. Now, I hinted at that before. I work with a lot of professionals, and they have great information. They have a lot of information. They know a lot of content, and they start their presentations with what content they're going to deliver without thinking about what is the purpose of this presentation. What do you want people to take away? What do you want somebody to learn, to understand? Do you want them to be persuaded to part with their money and invest in you? Do you want to inspire them to go out and clean up the waterways? Do you want to just give information? I help people put together brand reputation webinars, and they're purely just to, hey, look at me, I'm an authority, and if you want to have an expert sell your house that's somebody that you like, well, then come to me, because it's not just me talking, but here's some ways I've solved things. So there's all different reasons for giving the information, but making sure that you understand what the purpose is. So why are you speaking? First
Great
thing,
question.
why are you speaking? And what outcome do you want for people to take away or to achieve from that presentation? And
Yes.
and like all marketing, who's your audience? What message are you getting to that audience? And there's no use if you've got a whole lot of people that are employees on something and you're promoting a business opportunity, you've missed the mark with that audience. You really need to know your audience, and you need to know your topic. And if you can speak unscripted and still stay on topic and on time, that is absolutely vital. Because I'm sure people out there just know what they know their stuff. It's just getting confident that, and having what we're going to talk about next is how to engage people, and then how you engineer it. But putting it together in a way that reinforces what you're doing and how you're doing it. As I said, I use an acronym. That helps me because I can remember what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah.
Yes, great tip.
The third one is talking about engagement. And part of it is exactly what you did at the beginning, Aldwyn, is what I do, who I am and my history. So it's part of that. You gave the official bio, which went, oh, yeah, she's pretty good. Look at that. She's done all this stuff. But there was then the get to know me a little bit more, which is important, and because people buy from people.
Yes.
So having that type of connection, and when you're putting a presentation together, the why, there's two whys. Why somebody should be listening, and that's why I really want to find out what people are interested in doing, because that's their why. So when I put a presentation together, I often bring in some problems right at the beginning. If people have ever stood on stage and then forgot what they were going to say, or if you have thought, I really want to take my business to the next level and speak, but I'm not sure how to put it together. Things like that. So you're giving people their why. So there's a way to do it. You can ask people, as we've done, what's their why, but you can also tell people, here's some whys. So at least they can go, yeah, that's me. So you've got people's attention, and they know they're in the right place. Again, you've got to have the right audience. But that's then your why. And I gave you my why with that story about Anisholi. That was such a powerful why for me. And now it's not just about me. It's about the people that I help so they can do it.
Yes.
We don't want to go to our grave with words that we wish we had said.
So true. And when the why is big enough, the how will show up, they say. The why is so important. And the power of why, Simon Sinek, right? Great TED talk.
Mm-hmm. The why is just, both ways. So the why people would listen to you, and then why you're doing it. So there's two whys in here that are really important. Then you can start thinking about what you're going to speak about and how you put that together. So before, you've got to say yes to things and seize opportunities. You then look at what the purpose of the presentation, your why. Then you start looking at the content. It's what am I going to teach people from all of those? And part of that, the purpose, that gives you your headline or how to speak for profit. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about, how to do that. So whatever the headline is, then that's what the content must address. Getting a good headline. I know you're very good at helping people with headlines.
Thank you. Well, I've got a webinar tomorrow, actually, and the headline is how to gain over $1 million worth of free positive publicity. That's the headline. That's very direct to the point.
Yeah.
We know exactly what that talk's going to be about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's, and you stick to it then. That's another thing with content in people. And people give too much content. I guarantee. I'd love to know who thinks that they give too much content
Oh,
when they
yes.
do their presentations, because that is one of the problems I see all of the time. And if you give too much content, then people get confused as to what you can do for them. And plus, if you give too much away, then people think they can do things themselves. So getting that balance about what to give away and what not to give away and how much content, but still, I'm sure you've been to presentations where the whole presentation is a sell and you thought, I have just wasted all of that time. I've got nothing out of it whatsoever.
Yes.
We don't want that. We want to get a nice balance with the what you're going to tell them and how you might structure that and the information. And the other part then is so what if? So what if you know this information, what is next? Or what if when we're learning, there's 4 different types of learners. We are all a bit of everything, like all the personality profiling. We're not stuck into a pigeonhole. We are a bit of everything. But the format learning system follows what I've just been talking about. The people who turn up and are the why people, they really need to know straight up why they're there. Let's make them all 25%. They really need to know why they're there and keeping them engaged right from the beginning. If they've got, okay, that's fine. I understand why I'm here. And they'll stay listening to you and they'll stay engaged. The what people are the ones that go, so what are we going to do? I talked about the 5 points. This is what we're going to cover. Okay, fine. Make sure we cover them though, right? And they're the ones, if they turn up to a workshop or something that you're running, they'll want to go. So lunch is what time? 1 o'clock, right? Don't make it 3 minutes past because you said 1 o'clock. They'll find every spelling error there, but they're great. I love having what people in my workshops. Workshop training is very different than what we're talking about now, obviously, but still speaking.
Yes.
But again, that's engagement in your presentation, is being aware that those what people are in the audience. And again, you have to get them connected right from the beginning. So your why people first, your what people, the how people. So how do we do it? They're the ones that'll go, yeah, okay, I'm entertained. Just tell me how. So they're quite happy. But the what if people are the ones that will want to ask the questions. So it doesn't seem like we've got many what if people on here that aren't asking questions.
No, they're not. They're all being a bit shy today. We've got Tricia said she's from Adelaide.
Yeah. Welcome, Tricia.
Hello, Tricia. So if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat for Janeen. Any questions at all around speaking? And we'd love to address them for you. So
the what ifs are the people that go, they try and put what you've told them to what they're doing and how. So what if I do that and that works like that? They'll be the people at the end that ask questions. So what if I do this? So the what people will be thinking, I don't know, you were just told, have you not paid attention? But we need to allow the what ifs to ask their questions because they've been sitting there through the whole presentation and all amused and engaged, and now they're asking the questions. So that format learning system is really important to be aware of. So I don't want to confuse people. There's two things in those whys and those whys, and those whats and hows and what ifs. But it's important to understand that because it's all about how your audience is going to respond.
Yes, and how people learn. People learn differently, don't they?
Absolutely, and that's an important factor. Here we're not using a PowerPoint or anything, but if you are using visuals or how you're doing it, because 50% of the population are visual, so they've got our faces on here, and then there's auditory people, kinesthetic, who want to do something, and auditory digital who want to understand something. So explain it to me so I can understand it. If you are doing a presentation, you need to be aware of all of those different learning styles, again, in your audience and how you're going to adapt that. Because a lot of it is we speak, but you've probably missed about 50% of more than that of the audience if it's just speaking. Yeah. So that's the E for engagement. The A is, how do you build your authority? How do you come across as an authority on that subject? And it is all about delivering your message well. We've talked about it with the power talk, removing ums and ahs from your presentation. I remember I listened to a deputy commissioner at an event, and it was just after the tsunami went through Indonesia, and he was talking about the Queensland ambulance response in Banda Aceh and what they had been doing there. And it was fascinating, except for his ums and ahs. So I started, after he'd spoken for about 10 minutes, I started counting his ums and ahs and got a coaster and put little tiny marks. 1, 2, 3, 4 cross,
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4 cross. Before he had finished, way before he had finished in half an hour, that was totally full, the back of that card.
Oh, my goodness.
So what was happening to the audience was people were getting distracted really easily, and the conversation started from the back of the room and moved forward as he was speaking. The information was fascinating, but nobody was interested in listening to him because of the ums and ahs. An odd ah, so, however, actually, basically, you know what I mean, is not a problem. But when you're delivering them one after the other, he had hundreds and hundreds. And in the end, I just gave up counting. There was so many.
Wow.
So it is so important that you learn how, if that's something that you do, the one that I haven't added in there is like.
Yes.
Like.
Or A in Queensland. Hey, mate. Hey.
How's that going,
Hey.
How are you, mate? North Queensland. Yeah. It's the Italian cane growers of the last century. Yeah. But this is like the best interview I've ever had. This is amazing.
That's very American, isn't it? The likes.
No, it's Australian as well. It's
okay.
And it's surprisingly, I hear it in the 20-year-olds, but I'm now hearing it in their mothers.
Yeah.
Because they just picked it up. Stop it.
Stop it. So Tricia says, I hate yeah.
I have to tell you a story. I was flying back from Africa, and it had been a massive day, and how sometimes these flights you get hung over for 12 hours in Johannesburg, and then we flew to Perth and flying back from Perth to Brisbane, and there were two girls in front of me the whole way back that were, this is he's the nicest guy, and I'm standing over the top of him. I just wanted to sleep. And as soon as we landed in Brisbane, they turned on their phones and shut their mouths, and that was it was okay. I just have bad memories of the word like. Anyway, let's move on. So, but you need to be really aware of how you're presenting yourself. Having confidence, or I don't like fake it till you make it, but when I work with clients, we work through processes that you can feel it till you make it, and adapting ways to feel that. There's some really good processes to do that. You can, and again, owning that level of confidence, because people don't know you're nervous until you tell them you are. If I'm watching someone, I can pick up nervous tells, but most people can't. But if you say, I'm so nervous, well, guess what? People then know that you're nervous. We need to have body gestures that connect with the audience. It's very hard on screen, I need to be aware of something that doesn't take over the whole screen. But when you're standing in front of an audience, being able to use gestures effectively that work with the words that you are using. Connect. If there's a disconnect there, we subconsciously, we don't know why, but there's something missing. So getting the right gestures. On screen, this is what we've got. And it's smiles. That just is the best way, absolute best way to connect. And
Yeah.
eye contact on screen is really difficult also because we're looking at the camera, but it's so tempting to look at the person instead.
True.
It's hard to do. If we're looking at our voice, again, with our authority, what tone of message do we want to be delivering? Do we want to be delivering empathy, authority, excuse me, energy? What is that tone? And so tone comes in two ways. It's that emotion behind the words, but it's also if someone might have a deep resonance or a nasally type of tone to their voice. So no one likes the sound of their voice. Nobody. Get over it. Just get over it, because that's how people hear you every single day.
Yes.
Yeah, so that, just get used to it. Keep recording yourself. Eventually you'll get used to it. I just read Trisha's, she said she goes back with somebody if they reply with like,
Yes.
goes back to them. Yeah.
If someone overuses like, I reply with it back to them. Good on you,
I
Trisha.
like that, Trisha. That's good. The pitch of your voice. Ladies, we usually have more variety in the pitch of our voice, so we can be a bit higher and a bit lower, but we might get a bit pitchy and a bit high, whereas men tend to have a lower resonance with it and a lower sound to their voice, which can be easier on the ear, but can get boring if it doesn't have some variety in the pitch. The pace that we're speaking, if we just spoke at the same pace all the way through, then we wouldn't be very interesting to listen to. So how can you change up the pace? Maybe something's exciting and fun and make it a bit faster. Slow it down when you really have a point that you want to make. And use pause. Pause is the most effective method of gaining people's attention. Just stop and add some silence. That's where often people put filler words. But if you want to make a point, the reason we don't pause is when we're having conversations with friends and we're all in a group together or we're all chatting, as soon as we stop talking, somebody jumps in. So instead we go, and then we'll keep going. But when you are presenting, use pause and use it effectively. And, excuse me.
Yes, the power of pause is so important with public speaking, whereas it's a very different ballgame when you're doing a radio interview, right? Dead air is a big no-no for radio. And so with radio interviews, we need to keep the flow. It really is a different art form, speaking on a radio interview or a podcast interview even, as opposed to public speaking. And people can actually see your face, or as we're doing here, people can see us on online TV. It's very different. When you pause, people are waiting for the next thing you say, and it also makes you look more intelligent, apparently.
Well, I like that. I know I've got the speech contest coming up, and the last line is something that I just got to hold back and then deliver, and it's that power of that last line that's just going to, I think, make the speech. The other part is microphones. If somebody says, here's a microphone, your answer is thank you. Do you need a microphone? Yes, thank you. I've got a microphone here. Yes, thank you. Get used to using it properly. If you've got a hand mic, it's no use having it down near your stomach. Your voice doesn't come out of there. That's how I got the name of my business, Speech Perfect, where at a wedding and quite a few wines down, and I couldn't hear any of the speeches at all because everybody thought their voice was coming out of their stomach with the microphone down here. And I had my business originally was called Shifting Visions, and I was moving more into the speaking part of it. And the movie Pitch Perfect was out at the time. I went, Speech Perfect. That's it. We got it.
I like it.
Amazing what you can do with lines. You need to figure out how the room and how you're going to deliver the message, whatever format you're on, and be able to deliver it well. Okay, so that's your authority. And the last one is the K is for the key. It's where you tie everything together. How do you build connection with your audience? And there's ways to build rapport. In a room, it's easier because you can have eye contact with everybody in the room. I spoke to over 300 accountants recently, and I had the only thing I could see was my screen. I couldn't see any pictures of anyone else, and trying to keep that energy up, because if you're speaking online, you need a lot more energy than you do necessarily in front of a room. But being able to be aware that how you're going to build connection with people in the room is really important. There's advanced presenting techniques, how to lock in a point on the stage or anchor a point, but that you'll always have that point that it's future past, or it's a point where you go tell a story, and knowing how to do that well will again help build connection. Your audience, the audience don't know what's going on, but it builds that. You watch the speakers like Tony Robbins, and you don't understand why that sounds so good, but he's already told you this is past, present, I've locked you in here, and this is where you're going to go in the future. And then you give him a lot of money. It's how you do that. How do you tell stories? Now, I've told a few stories while we've been going through. And that's such an important part. Start collecting anecdotes. You want to do that. There's things that'll be happening to you on a daily basis. Because when I first started speaking, I thought, I've had no traumas. I've had no massive life-changing events, until I started to think about the things that they don't have to be that, I was crippled and then got well, because that's not everybody's story. But the stories I tell are usually everyday, everybody's stories. We've all got stories. We're finding those stories. How to tell them, how to pitch is another important factor when you're putting it all together. With the key at the end is how you can pitch yourself to get onto the podcast, to get onto a speaking gig. That's an important factor. And a call to action. What do you want someone to do at the end, and how you do that well? Because I hear a lot of speakers, they've got great information, they want to get it out there, but the sales part, they sort of pull back from. But if you've built that connection with your audience, and they believe that you can help improve their life, make them healthier, wealthier, happier in some way, then they'll be happy to invest in you. But you need to own your call to action. And importantly, say thank you for the opportunity to present information, because it's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to be in front of people and be able to share what I know, share what you know. And I think it's an important thing to be able to do. So thank you, everybody, for listening. And I just wanted to see if anyone's got any questions, or if there's anything else, Aldwyn, that we want to go with from there. Or you've got any questions as well. I know there's a couple of things we want to add. So
amazing, Janeen. I absolutely love that SPEAK acronym and everything you've shared. Absolutely brilliant. I do want to talk more about the pitch side of things, because, with such a crowded marketplace online at the moment, and, we're at a time now with 2.2 million podcasts worldwide and growing all the time. In 2018, it was only 500,000 podcasts.
I was one of them.
You're right. Good on you. Awesome. And still going. And some people aren't still going with their podcasts. Some people have started and not continued. And consistency is another big thing. My question around pitching. A lot of people are pitching all over the place and are burning contacts with their pitches. What are some ways that we can pitch without burning contacts? What's some tips around pitching?
In what framework are you talking about pitching? Like the 1 minute pitch, or the pitch to be on a speaking gig?
Pitch to speak at someone's event, or pitch to be a guest on someone's show, to speak in that way. So a pitch to basically put yourself forward as a great person for that person to work with in some way.
figuring out, understanding the audience of the person that you're pitching to is incredibly important. And when you know the audience, then what does your skill base offer them? So the reason that you're delivering in the information is to help people somehow. It's not, I know, we talk about our focus about what the purpose is, but for the person that's got the show or the runs the business group where you're speaking, that they've got to know what's in it for their people, because their reputation hangs on getting the right speakers. What is in it for their audience? It's like any sales conversation at any time is figuring out what is in it for the audience. And when you've got that, then that's the message you deliver, rather than saying, and then you'd offer, my expertise is. But look, I noticed that the people that you speak to, Aldwyn, are a lot of people setting up in business. And I think one of the most important things that they could probably benefit from is learning how to be able to pitch their business. When I work with people, we break it down, and if I can help your people by breaking it down and doing this, then see that sort of thing. So what's in it for your audience that's an important factor. So doing some research, figuring it out, and then offering it up that way.
And I think also looking at where you can support the person that you're pitching to as well. So, for example, yesterday I had a meeting with someone in the UK who's running a marketing summit, and they came to one of my free publicity secrets masterclasses, and they reached out to me and said they wanted me to speak at their international summit coming up in a few months. And they asked me, they said, can you email your database and let them know about the event? And I said, yeah, absolutely, happy to do that. And also I offered to interview that lady, which will be coming up in a month or so. We'll be talking about branding. And so looking at how I could support her with getting the vision out for what she's doing. And it becomes then a win-win scenario. And even if people don't have a big following, even if it's just doing a social media post or, emailing, even if it's a small list, emailing your list and your database with what you've got coming up, or, looking at how you can support the people who you're pitching to create win-win scenarios, and not always be like, gimme, gimme, gimme. It's got to be the give and take. It's got to be that reciprocity. And absolutely. I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, with our connections, with a lot of the connections that we've been on the same sort of shows or had the opportunities together, that you build up those relationships with people. 2022, without a doubt, is relationships. That's why, when I'm helping businesses put their webinars together, it's about the relationships and how that person stands out in front of somebody else, because somebody's got to know them through, and webinars are a great way for people to get to know you.
Yes.
Not interviewed.
Yeah, and as we've done, you interviewed me for your show, and now I'm interviewing you for my show, and we've actually known each other for quite a while. It's just recently we've now collaborating together, and that's the thing, is that relationships, with that comes trust, and people are now thinking, well, who do they trust? There's so much craziness in the world and so many lies that we're fed on so many levels by those in power, for those in the know. And, do your own research with everything. Having worked as a journalist, I can tell you there's all sorts of hidden agendas going on out there, and people are really fearful and wondering who can they trust. And this is where the relationships are even more crucial, as you say, for 2022 is so crucial.
Absolutely. And we've got an election coming up in about 5 weeks. Again, that's exactly what you said. For people, do your research, build relationships. That's the important factor. And figuring out like everything, who can you trust? It's very much so. This is where we're going in the future with everything. With business, it's going to be, who do I trust, and do people have the same values and focus as what I do?
And consistently showing up. That's something we've both done over many years. We have consistently shown up, and the stats are about 80% of people fail, or businesses fail, in the first 5 years, and then the next 5 years 80% of those fail. So even being in business more than 5 years, you're doing well, right?
Yeah, you are. And just even, you mentioned that the podcast is still going now. I think it was 6 years into it. and I was working with a client yesterday, and she was really struggling with the need to go and put herself out there. She just doesn't like any of the social media or anything. So we came back to her purpose, and her purpose in her work is to help people get clear focus. So I took it back the other way, and now she's gone, right, I can understand why I'm doing this, because I'm helping people. That's why I keep the podcast going. There's no financial benefit for me with it, other than people get to know me and book in for strategy calls and that type of thing. But the people I interview have so much valuable information to share. So I keep the podcast going because that's my truth, is to be able to help other people get the information that they need to have the success or the health or the mental wellness, whatever the interview is about, that they need. And the right person will hear it at the right time. The same with my weekly blog. People can sign up for my weekly blog, and it's a bit of just a half-page blurb thing, and I've had people respond to me going, "That is exactly what I needed to hear today." That was thank you. They get one of those every couple of months, the response like that, and I go, fine, I'll just keep doing this on a Friday, madly typing, so it goes out on a Saturday morning, but that's why I do it.
Yeah, love it. Love it. And that's the thing. Every podcast you put out, every media appearance that you have, you are leaving a legacy. You never know who will see that, hear that, who you will inspire. And, a lot of people get caught up on the numbers of how many people are watching things or following, or, if you impact one person with your message, it's worth putting that message out. If one person shows up at your event, it's worth running that event. So start somewhere. Everything is about imperfect action, even though we've got speech perfect for your title there, but it is about imperfectly moving forward. You're never going to get it exactly perfect. There will always be something that you might wish that you added, etc. And one of the biggest things that stops people is that fear. So any tips about overcoming fear with speaking?
The feel it till you make it is definitely something that I believe in. Because the fake it till you make it means that you're faking it, and I'm not into faking things. So what I do is I get people to we do a meditation through something that they love to do, that they're really good at. I've had people that just love to get in their flashy little sports car and drive around mountains. When they're in it, they're in the zone, absolutely in the zone. I've had people that I am really sorry. My husband's outside the window pulling faces, and it just totally distracted me.
Oh, how funny.
Oh, forget that.
Do you need to deal with that, or?
Oh, no, he's out. He's gone now. He just knew that was going to be distracting. I apologize.
Thank you, hubby.
Oh, so yeah, feeling what it is, that that's something you're really good at, that you confidently can go and do it time after time after time. If you're a massage therapist, it might be that you just, when you get into doing massages, you get into that whole zone. So in the meditation is owning that sense of what you're good at, and the nervousness and excitement is the same feeling in the gut. When you're excited about something and you're nervous, it's that same feeling. So instead of calling it nervous, call it excited, and really own that sense of control, and eventually that will be excited and not nervous.
I like that. Reframe. Excited, not nervous. And looking back at your life, Janeen, what is some advice you would give to, say, your younger self, knowing what you know now and all the ups and downs you've had through your life? What is some advice you would give your younger self, or some of the biggest learnings that you've had along the way?
I think probably most people who relate to this one is stop judging yourself. It's, that we are all doing the best that we can possibly do with the skills we have. So the idea is to get more skills. And I've done that all the way along, but I would still tell myself to invest even more in yourself. The more you invest in yourself, the more confidence you feel, the more you can own who you are. I think that's such an important factor, is to and not, once you do that, you tend not to judge yourself as much. I know I certainly don't do that now. It's just get on with it. And again, nothing's perfect, except speech perfect, of course, but nothing's perfect. It doesn't matter in the scheme of things. Look back at things that you may have been stressed about, that took up so much worry time. Then you look at them back in a day or a month or a year, and you go, why did I bother? It just is not that big a deal. And I think the last 2 years have absolutely proven that. So much other stuff is not that big a deal.
Absolutely. Be kind to yourself, friends. Be kind to yourself, because someone else will always be there to put you down, right? Be kind to yourself. Lift your own energy. It's up to you. Lift your own energy and have a good team around you, and seek support if you want to take your speaking to another level. And you have some fantastic things coming up, Janeen. Would you like to share?
I do. So there's a few different things. One is a free webinar, and I would love people to jump onto that. And it is there's a link going in for that.
I'll pop it in the chat.
Yeah. And it is, remind me what the title is. I'm trying to think now. But it's
here it is here. Zoom meeting.
It is a really good webinar. Oh, no, it's not on there. But it's how to live it's about how to live fearlessly. There's a whole lot of tips, like just the little things you were asking
here
about.
We go.
Yeah.
Unlock the science of living fearlessly every day. There it is.
And so jump onto that. It goes for about an hour and a bit on the 21st at 7 p.m. And there's some tips through that. There is, I work with people to either figure out whether I can help them, or I've got a lot of experts on tap that I can then recommend. So I suggest people, if they want to have a longer chat to me, is to jump on for a 20-minute strategy call, and we can see how I might be able to assist them, or someone else can, or just give them a couple little tips. And if you do that, then I will send you a free copy of my book, Good Girls Do Sell. If you want to book a strategy call, so that's a little bit of bonus. I never do that. I have strategy calls daily, quite a few a day, and I just thought I would offer it for your people here. So that's
wonderful. Thank you so much.
When we have a strategy call, just let me know that you asked me for the book. Then I'll know that you were on the program here. And for those people on the Gold Coast or anywhere near the Gold Coast, the wonderful Gold Coast libraries are putting on a whole lot of training through May, and they have asked me to run a masterclass on how to master the basics of your professional brand on LinkedIn. And that, it's a 2-hour, and it's a very interactive. You bring your computer, and we do things there and then. I ran one a couple of weeks ago for them, and so Gold Coast Libraries, I really want to congratulate them, because they're investing in people and helping them. Gold Coast have been hit really hard for the last couple of years, and they're helping people. The first one was how to get jobs on LinkedIn, and this one's how for business people to set up their profile. So
nice.
that's a free event, but they've got very limited numbers, obviously, because if I'm helping people in the room do it, I think we're limited to 10 people in the room. So.
Got it. Okay, so I'll put those links there in the comments. You'll see them either on Media Queen TV on YouTube, or on Aldwyn Altuney profile or page on Facebook.
That one is the 5th of May at Broadbeach Library, and it's on in the evening. The other one.
Okay.
Yeah, and strategy call is JaneenVosper.com.
Okay, strategy call is here. Beautiful. And Tricia has registered for your webinar. Wonderful. Excellent, Tricia. So
Tricia.
That will be wonderful. And for those who want to connect with me, here's my link tree. And I have some events coming up, actually tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. That's Brisbane time. You can join me at the free webinar, how to gain over $1 million worth of free positive publicity, drawn from 38 years in the media. I share some insider knowledge there around how to get journalists' attention, how to get featured in the media so you don't waste money on advertising. And that's excellent if you're really ready to step up and step out with your message.
That's
so check that out. And that's all my links are on Linktree. Also, if you want to book a call with me as well, you can do that there. My calendar link is in there and all my social media links. So connect on there. And Janeen, amazing. Love your work. It's been so great having you here today. Are there any final words you would like to share before we wrap up today?
Thank you, Aldwyn. I really love it. As I said, sharing stuff is my favourite thing to do. Look, go back to the S. Just say yes. Just seize any opportunities. And
Yes.
that's the most important is to do that. That's your first step.
I love that. I'm going to give that a love heart. Say yes. Say yes, my friends. Say yes. You never know where it could lead to. Say yes, jump in it. It's like jump off the cliff and then learn how to fly. That's how it goes. And that's the thing is all successful people do is they take chances. They take risks. And sometimes it is scary. However, it's in the leaping, in the stepping out of the comfort zone that you stretch yourself and you see where your boundaries are from there. And that's how you grow in life. That's how you grow and evolve. And love your work, Janeen. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you at some of your events as well. I'm going to check those links out myself. And thank you so much for joining us. For those who've joined us live and watching the replay, let us know in the comments, what have you got out of this today? What's something you've got out of this? What's some action you are going to be taking moving forward? And of course, we'd love to see you on those events. As Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And as I say, shine bright and light up all those around you. Lots of love to you and have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. We will see you again soon. Thank you so much again, Janeen. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.